you everyone for coming. It's really, really nice to see lots of people here today. So we are looking at accelerating pupil progress today. So we're going to go through a few things. So first of all, introductions. I'll introduce myself. My name is Sue Hayes and I'm a subject and curriculum advisor for Learning by Questions. I've got 15 years experience as a secondary maths teacher, 6 of those as a head of department. My current role at Learning by Questions, I actually write question sets for them for the maths secondary content, and I'm also looking at developing Learning by Questions specifically for secondary schools. I still do some teaching. I work at some local football clubs for their academy programs, so I get my fix for teaching because it's a strange one when you leave. You do need that. I'm lucky enough to have at least one of my secondary science colleagues with us today. So Dr. Zoe Saunders. Zoe, do you just want to pop on and say hello?
Hello, nice to see you again.
It's lovely to see you as well. It's been a while, hasn't it? Is Peter available with you or not?
Yes, he's just joining now. He was just been exam invigilating, so he'll be with us very, very shortly.
That's it. Another of these things we have to do, isn't it? All right. Well, I'll introduce Peter a little bit later on, but thank you for joining us, Zoe. It's really appreciated.
Thank you.
So essentially, it's about sharing views and experiences today, all to do with accelerating pupil progress. So if I just go through a quick overview of the session, like I just said, the aim is to highlight ways that we can accelerate pupil progress. I'm aware that as the audience, as teachers, you're going to have a wealth of knowledge and experience. Please feel free to contribute things in the chat. As we're talking and having these conversations, if you think of something relevant, please pop it in the chat and Talitha will make sure that we're aware of it and we can include it. So thank you for that. So during the session today, we're going to be looking at numerous things. We'll be looking at, firstly, what do we mean by accelerated pupil progress? We'll then be looking at measuring pupil progress and how we do that. Most importantly, we'll be looking at strategies we can use to accelerate pupil progress. And as Talitha mentioned before, it's going to get a bit interactive at one point. We're going to show how you can use Learning by Questions to support pupil progress or accelerating pupil progress. And in which case, we'll get you online. We'll get you onto the platform and actually doing some of our questions. And after that, there'll be time for some question and answer session as well. So quite a busy package going on there today. So first of all, what is accelerated pupil progress? It's quite simple, isn't it, really? We're just looking to accelerate pupil progress more quickly than we did before. And we can look at it in 2 different ways, I think. We can first of all look at it as accelerating pupil progress within a lesson, or we can look at it as accelerating pupil progress over time. And I think when we look to accelerate pupil progress over a long period of time, this can just seem like an enormous mountain to climb and it becomes insurmountable because it's just too big a thing to think of, particularly if you're looking at it from where they come in at secondary and where they expect to leave at secondary. It's just too big to think about. So it's far easier to consider what can be done lesson by lesson. And essentially the same thing anyway. If you make enough consistent progress in small pockets throughout the lessons that the children have with you, that is going to translate to consistent progress over time. So we're very much focusing on the little bits that can be done today because that's where the most progress is going to take place and it's more sustainable. So what does accelerated pupil progress look like? It looks different for lots of different pupils. And the thing is, it's not always tangible. So you will yourself know when a pupil is feeling more confident, their engagement has increased and they start volunteering in class and there's greater focus in the lesson. They are probably making far greater progress than they were before. And these are all really desirable outcomes. And I saw a nice quote online, which I'll share with you, that a student's progress should be measured in terms of the questions they are asking, not merely by the answers that they are reciting, which I think is lovely. And it would be a really nice way to assess, but it is so hard to quantify and implement this way. So how can we show that our pupils are making progress? We as teachers may know they are making progress because we know our children well, but how can we show it? And at this point, when we're looking to measure pupil progress, I'm going to go to my colleagues, Zoe and Peter, and just how are you currently measuring ongoing pupil progress in your school, Zoe, or Peter, if you're here? Oh, you're on mute, Zoe.
Hi, sorry about that. Do you want Pete to just introduce himself first because he wasn't here before?
Perfect, thanks, Zoe. Hi, Peter.
Hi, I'm in there. Hi, I'm Pete. I'm the subject leader of physics at Queen Elizabeth Grammar School in Blackburn.
Nice to see you, Peter. Hope the invigilating went well.
Oh, just about.
Yes, so basically, initially, how are you measuring pupil progress at the moment?
So it's obviously very immediate, very informative, very specific feedback. It gives you insights on individuals, but it also makes it very easy to spot whole class strengths and weaknesses. And that can obviously feed into your teaching, into your planning. But it's also very much feeding into our ongoing assessment profiles and helping us to look at individuals on a targeted and tracked basis like that as well.
So you're referring there to, Zoe, some of the data that you get from learning by questions, aren't you?
Yeah.
What are the, you said it was feeding into some of your processes that are already there. What kind of processes have you got apart from learning by questions?
We use a variety of different online assessments as well as obviously our in-house assessments, and it just all helps to feed into the sort of overall profile to look at who are our most able, who are our ones that need extra intervention, and obviously then we can target different groups for different needs.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Your in-house assessments, how often are they taking place?
They're every half term, and obviously they require a lot more teacher input into the assessment and the marking, the feedback. So the learning by questions, being able to do that as a matter of regular routine really does help us out an awful lot.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that when it's because I think it's quite a common thing, and I don't know whether people will be putting this in chat as to how often do pupils get assessed, but the half-termly assessments do seem to be quite a common thing. But the paper trail you get with that and the sheer input of teacher hours for marking it, and then potentially question level analysis after that just becomes huge, and sort of quite difficult to deal with, I guess. So when you're asking your teachers to do this collection of data once they've assessed pupils, what are you expecting the teachers to do with that data once they've got it? I'm talking about your normal in-house assessments here. Sorry, Zoe, just to be clear.
Yeah, so the normal in-house assessments feed back into obviously the setting. If we're looking at moving pupils in there, look at the feedback that goes home to parents, those sorts of things, and working out which pupils are we're going to target for extra intervention. Yeah.
Last point on this one, I think. How reliable do you find that data? So I'm talking again about that end of term or end of half term assessment where it's just a little snapshot of time, really. Do you find that data reliable, or what do you think?
The big ones that we do as in-house.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. But it's the labour intensive side of it, which is the sort of the downfall of it. But it does give you the ability to look at long-term recall. So we'll assess things there that haven't been assessed for a period of time.
And that's so important now, isn't it? With obviously no GCSEs containing any coursework, or certainly none of the the sciences or maths. It's so important that they've got that recall. Okay, right, thank you.
Sorry, just to interrupt, I've just had a couple of people on the chat say, so Samuel Baker says, we do short assessment after unit of learning in maths, then they have a big assessment once a term, which can affect sets. And then Charlotte Kirby has said mid-topic quiz and end of topic test. I'm in science topics last 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. I know my daughter's just started at secondary school. She's in year 7, and they have the regular sort of topic 3 weeks, maybe every 3 weeks they'll have a little test in maths, and then it is big end of term assessments they're doing at the moment. So yeah, there's a chase for data, really, isn't there? Obviously you need to know how they are doing, and obviously it's quite labour intensive when we look at that. Okay, so moving on, and I guess this is probably one of the most important bits of this session this afternoon. What strategies can we use to accelerate pupil progress? So Zoe and Peter, again, not necessarily looking at learning by questions at this stage, but what strategies would you suggest have proven effective in your school for accelerating pupil progress?
One of the focuses that we've got at the minute is on, and it's going to be for the next year, on retrieval practice. So there's a real focus there on, going back to previous work and really making sure they can retrieve that before you move forward. There's a focus on how curriculums are designed to incorporate that, how to, how are we ensuring that we're consolidating and making progress at the same time.
Are you looking to do that as like starters a couple of weeks down the line kind of thing when you're looking at that retrieval?
It depends. So in our physics curriculum, for example, it's every time we've split the curriculum into key themes. So every time we come back to that key theme, we'll go back through the work that's been done previously. I know in other subjects they have, as just a starter activity for a lesson, they'll have one question about something that was done last lesson, or a question that was something that was done a month ago, or a question about something that was done last year, something like that.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a bit. I do think that's becoming a popular thing, isn't it? I don't know if there's any ideas coming in this chat, so feel free to jump in, tell us Thursday. I did come up with a few bits and pieces myself.
Not just yet, not just.
That's all right, no problem. It's all about sharing, but I'll share my ideas as well, and anyone feel free to jump in at any point. So on the slide, hopefully now, I think scaffolding is really important. I know a lot of maths and science departments do set their pupils, but you still get a massive amount of differentiation within those groups. So scaffolding to support the less sure members of the group is really, really important. Focus practice, I think this probably comes back to your retrieval point you were making there, Peter. To be able to do the good retrieval, you need to have embedded the knowledge in the first place, which is where your focus practice comes from. If you can drill that practice almost, you've got half the chance of embedding, so that when you do practice retrieval in a few weeks' time, the knowledge is there to come back to. Effective marking can have a big effect on pupil progress, but again, it's coming back to Zoe's point before about things being labour intensive. As soon as you've got, whether it's an assessment to mark or a chunky piece of homework to mark, there's that cost sort of benefit analysis on is it worth the time for the benefits you get from it. Feedback, part of marking, I guess, but feedback is so important to push children on. If they're getting feedback, whether it's to say, yes, that was brilliant, really love it, have you thought of doing this, and extending them a little bit further, or whether it's just saying, you're not quite there, you just need a bit of a nudge in the right direction. Feedback is really, really important, and the closer you can receive feedback to at the point of misconception is really effective. If you can get it in the moment where you have a problem, then it can work wonders, but that is so hard to do as a classroom teacher, given that you've got 30 plus pupils in front of you. How are you supposed to provide that for all those children that are there in the classroom? The identification of gaps in learning, obviously, I think this comes down to things like question level analysis sometimes on the back of those assessments, or as some of our members are saying, those little tests that you've done, those 2 or 3 week tests that you've done. There's always that trawl of trying to identify the gaps. And then when you're looking to fill those gaps, and with intervention, are you being very specific and just focusing on certain gaps? Have you got the manpower to focus on certain gaps? So there's lots and lots of things to be thinking about there. So yeah, it's also a big
had from
go on, tell us that.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Sorry, Sam's on it like a car bonnet, and he's back, and he said, every starter is now a retrieval starter in my school. 4 questions from throughout the year, also useful for building up to a certain topic, for example, volume of a prism. Lots of questions on area of 2D shapes would be good in starters. And then also Charlotte has said, mind map, student adds to it every couple of lessons in a different colour pen. It is a good way to track progress. Yeah, that is a really good way, actually. Students to reflect on their own learning and use of provision.
I was just going to say that, Charlotte, well, when they go back and perhaps look at the mind map and what they did a couple of weeks ago and think, oh, actually, do I still remember that bit? So it's really nice for them to sort of think, actually, do I have as good a handle on that topic as I thought I did? So yeah, some lovely ideas. Thank you so much for contributing to this task. It does really mean something. So thank you. Right, the next slide then is, oh yeah, I forgot my little bit here. It's because I've said try not to do it too much. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. The assessment's important. We need to know where those children are, but sometimes it can actually interrupt us making the progress in the first place, but I will come back to that in a moment. Okay, right, this is where we're going to get a little bit interactive now. So we're going to actually get you to try a couple of question sets for us. So this is hopefully to give you a feel for learning by questions and what we do. So what you will need to do is you'll need to open another tab, or if you've got a phone handy, use a web browser on there, and you just need to go to the URL www.lbq.org/task. That will take you to a screen which is our task login screen, and you just need to enter this code KHSH, and that will take you to some tasks. You just need to enter your name, and if you press go, you're in there. You will see on the taskbar at the top, there are 2 tasks that I've set today. I know I was speaking to maths and science teachers, so I put 2 different tasks on there. The first task is a maths task on calculating compound measures, and the second task is a science task on calculating speed. So obviously shared curriculum here, I thought that's what we'd go for. So you've got 2 different tasks that you can have a go at, and I would love it if you could just go on and have a look at that, please, for now, and see what you can do, just so you can experience what learning by questions is all about. As you're working through, and this is going to go against the grain for you, I want you to make some mistakes, please. I want you to make some errors so that you can see the type of feedback that the pupils get in the moment. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute and just let you get on and have a go at that and see what you can do. Thank you. Lovely, I see we've got lots of people racing through already, and we've got some mistakes being made. That's really good. Usually it's like, no, I'm not doing anything. Fantastic. Okay, this is looking really good. I can see on the speed calculations one, so that's the second task, which is a science task. Few issues on question 2 showing up. We've got some good progress being made. We've got some people going on to the next level soon. And the maths task going well. Again, question 2, some issues. That might be because I've told you to get it all wrong though, so we'll see. Okay, right. Hopefully you've all just gone, what's going on? What's happened? I've paused you all. Okay, so I've just paused the task. And I know full well that whilst you were doing that, I've been talking of you a little bit and giving you a few glimpses to what I'm seeing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing my original screen with you, and I'm going to share a different screen with you now to show you exactly what the teacher sees as pupils are completing their tasks. So hopefully you can see a screen with lots of lovely data on it. And this is for our speed calculations exercise. So this is the science one. And you can see all the way through here that we've got lots of data coming through, and it's color coded. So it's so easy to see and interpret as we're going through. So when I mentioned that I thought there might be a problem with question 2, you can see that it was simply me glancing down this, or even just looking at the top and seeing that it was in orange there, meaning that there has been a little bit of an issue with that question. I can look at that question and see exactly what responses were made or what the question was. Again, I had 2 different question sets running. So if I go on and have a look at my maths question set, and I can see how this was being answered here. I can see lots of pupils. Yeah, question 3, a little bit of a concern there. So perhaps the teacher, I would look at that, look at the question myself and think, is that a misconception that I need to address with the whole group? But most importantly, you've got all of this insight coming in whilst the pupils are working and learning, because they're getting that feedback, which just gives them that nudge in the right direction to carry on independently of the teacher. As a teacher, I have a tremendous amount of insight into their depth of knowledge. And quite often you find that someone you thought knew a topic inside out actually didn't know it as well as you thought they did. So that was really, really quick. And I apologise for interrupting you doing the questions there on Learning by Questions. But that was just to give you a feel for what it's all about. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing that screen. I'm amazed I've not messed this up yet. I usually do. And share this other screen. Okay, so hopefully we're back to the slides. So on the back of what we've just seen there, I'm just going to talk through some of the benefits that we see using Learning by Questions. Now, Zoe and Peter, I know that you both use Learning by Questions really regularly in your lessons. What would you say are the key benefits for pupils for using the question sets in class?
One of the big things that I find as an advantage is that your misconceptions can be really quickly identified. And obviously resolved before they get embedded in, and you can take it forward that way. It does allow you to see the whole class strengths and things that you can move through quite quickly, and then it really gives you the discretion level, because obviously you can the pupils like to be able to see how they're getting on the board, and they work out very quickly who they are, even though they're not identifiable, because they just come up as pupil numbers. To the rest of the class, but they all very quickly work out who they are, and that level of discretion is really good for doing that.
Yeah, I think as well, what I've seen when I use it myself, or when I see it in the class, is just the sort of competition element, because sometimes comes in and think, oh, if someone's there, I want to strive to get there, and it's quite nice. And you've got that extra visibility, but like you say, you can anonymize it. If it was a particular group where you didn't want to anonymize it, you can have names shown as well, but obviously that's at the discretion of the teacher. Any thoughts? Sorry, Zoe, go on.
I was just going to say, it's good the way that they can work at their own pace. So the question sets are designed that if they are sort of flying through, they move them up to the next level of challenge, and obviously that allows the ones that are able and motivated to sort of stream ahead, but it obviously gives the targeted support and feedback to the ones that need it a bit more.
Yeah, and there's a lot of thought that goes into the design of the question sets, in that we want that progression, and you'll get image support lower down in the question set, but then some of the problem solving and reasoning questions are really tricky when you get to those, and by running a question set, you're not limiting any of the children in your class. So yes, it's really nice to hear that. Again, I've just put some thoughts down, which hopefully mirror some of yours as well, Zoe and Peter. So yeah, working with technology, I find a lot of pupils are quite engaged with it. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we're doing an LbQ lesson today. They know what's coming, they know what to do, and they can just crack on with it. Pupils, you've just mentioned this, working at their own pace. There's something quite comforting to know that, do you know what, I'm not quite sure of this topic area. I can just work through on my own, quite steadily, and I know I'm going to get the support of the feedback as I'm going through. So that is quite nice for the pupils to see. I've mentioned the structure of the question sets. We do try and think really carefully, having been, all of our authors are experienced not maths teachers, but they're all experienced teachers. I'm an experienced maths teacher, and we just we really think, right, what would my starting point be, and where do I want them to get to by the end of the lesson, and we just think about the journey to get there. Other than that, it's the personalised teacher feedback that they get. If we put specific feedback in for misconceptions, so if it is a common misconception that we think, oh, they're going to answer that, we've put it in and we've given feedback directly to address that misconception. And again, it's one of those things when you've got the live data in front of you, even if our feedback doesn't sort out the misconception, as a teacher, you know where you need to go to help these pupils. And they can attempt it as many times as they want to. I know there's a lot of products out there that will only let you answer once or twice, and then that's it, it's recorded, that's your mark, that's that. Our pupils know that they can try as many times as needed, and it makes them sort of think, yes, come on, I'm going to get this. So it's nice to see. And they take a bit of ownership for that learning as well. Okay, so moving on again, I know you're both very experienced teachers, Zoe and Peter. What do you think are the main teacher benefits of using learning by questions?
I like the fact that because we're getting individual feedback without me, so I can go around and I can identify who I really need to help without worrying that there's half a class that aren't able to make that progress while I'm focusing on the ones who are struggling the most, maybe, because I know that they're getting some feedback without me having to do it. And it's also, I know they're getting feedback, it's a way of them making progress without me having to put pen to paper in a book or an assessment sheet. So it's a really good way for me to say, you are getting feedback, you're responding to feedback, so I want you to improve your questions, your answers. So I never let them. And also when we went to the grid before, there were quite a few people that had got an answer wrong and moved on to the next question. Whereas when I'm using this, I tend to say, I want you to have at least 3 attempts at a question before you then put your hand up to ask me or ask the person next to you. And normally, if they've read the feedback carefully, before we get to that 3rd time, most pupils are able to move on to another question.
And I think the fact that they've used the feedback themselves is almost empowering for them, because it's kind of like, yeah, I didn't know how to do this, but I've sorted it. I didn't need Mr. Hargreaves' help. I managed to do it on my own. I think that can be quite empowering. And like you said, Peter, it leaves you free to deal with the people who most need you. You're the expert in the classroom. You are the most valuable resource ever. And so learning by questions enables you to be with the people who need you most. So yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Other things I've just, again, brainstorming before, it's easy to set up. There's no excessive preparation. You saw how quickly it was to get children onto it before, when you all had a decent go at it. The question sets are scaffolded, as you will have seen when we did those tasks. There's no dead time in the lesson. Peter alluded to this then. If he's dealing with someone, he doesn't need to worry about other people wanting his attention. They have got sufficient things to be getting on with, and they have got that feedback to be working through. So that works really well. The teachers, like say with the dashboard, you've got this tremendous insight as to where there are problems. You can see who's progressing. You can even see who's gone off task, because it will tell you if someone hasn't answered a question for however long. So you've got all this sort of superpower, really, to see what's going on in your lesson. Zoe mentioned about the misconceptions, can make it very, very easy to spot and then deal with at the time. And you can also set additional question sets mid-lesson. So if someone's doing really well and flying through, you can set an additional question set. Okay, moving on further. We saw a bit of the data matrix before. I showed you the live version. This is just a quick picture of it. So this is what you get with every single lesson. And the biggest cut here is it provides the teacher with a tremendous amount of insight and with regards to the depth of knowledge that the pupils have. Another thing to consider in relation to pupil progress is how much we need to measure it. And I know we talked about this before, about all the different measures we've got. So some people are doing it every couple of weeks, sometimes half termly, lots and lots of different things. But sometimes the assessment of pupils can actually take over the learning that we want to show in that assessment, and it gets in the way of making progress itself. And if we assess too much, we lose valuable teaching time. And the beauty of learning by questions data is that it is generated when the pupils are learning. So the reason you set a learning by questions task in your classroom is so the teachers can learn, the pupils can learn. That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? So that the pupils can learn in the lesson. That's your main reason for setting it, and it's just a very happy byproduct that we get lots of this lovely data at the end of it. Moving on, as the pupils complete the question sets, they're pretty much unaware that data is being generated, to be honest, and this in itself is a bonus. You don't particularly want your pupils to be aware that they're being assessed constantly. And like I said before, learning by questions isn't primarily an assessment tool, it's a learning tool. And pupils continue to receive feedback, obviously, when they're doing it, despite them being assessed at the same time. Pupils can use the data themselves to see how they are progressing by looking at their own dashboard and seeing how they are getting on and where there's any problems potentially. But one of the biggest things that the pupils appreciate is that they can answer a question how many times they want. They will still see that in their data. So they might think, oh, actually, I wasn't so good on that question 3 because I needed to try it 4 times. But the fact that they can try it as much as they like takes away anxiety and tends to increase their resilience. as well. So we found there's lots of benefits for the pupils with the data. Now, Zoe, I know that you're a big fan of the teacher data that LbQ provides. What have you found to be some of its main benefits?
Yeah, so we do the tracked classes mode of delivery now, which just enables us to look at sort of progression across a topic, and that really allows us to sort of see across the year pattern, and obviously we'll feed it through year on year. Our primary are also using that data now, so we've got the progression coming up from primary to give insight into future planning, future groupings, etc. As they're going through year on year.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, there's lots of little bits and pieces. So the data is automatically recorded, so there's no sort of big chase for teachers to do that. Obviously, the live data matrix supports the intervention in the lesson, which we've already mentioned. Any data analysis in the lesson is very, very straightforward to do because you just look down the matrix. Your question level analysis is essentially done for you because you know there's an issue with question 4 because it's all red or whatever the case may be. Data is automatically stored and can be accessed at any time. And this is the main point that Zoe was alluding to. It tracks the data over time automatically. So she mentioned a tracking system. And essentially this image we've got in the top right-hand corner of the screen is your individual lesson matrix. However, we store every single one of those. And you can see all of that data over time for all of your classes. So you know exactly where they are and how they are progressing over the year. Okay, so just trying to...
Another question we've had, are the questions exam board specific? So we use CCEA and hence the topic content is different from AQA and EdXL.
A lot of it is this a science-based question? I'm thinking it probably is.
I'm not sure. It
very
sounds
similar.
it.
Yeah, I think for the majority of the science question sets have been written for AQA, but we are constantly evolving and question sets are being written all the time. I'm not, you'll have to excuse my lack of knowledge on the science curriculum, but it will be the case that there will be question sets on the curriculum, but whether it is entirely written specifically for that different exam board, it won't be, but it may still well have lots of things that are valuable to you. Sorry, that wasn't a very good answer to the question, but just because I'm not science specific, I can't.
No, I think that was good. I think when we spoke to Al, Alistair is teacher, writer for science, and he was saying that there was a hell of a lot of crossover between different exam boards when I was speaking to him about it. Sorry, Peter, I interrupted.
Well, I was just going to say a similar thing, that I think most things from the curriculum content to even things like the required practicals that fall into different specifications, as far as I'm aware, are agreed at JCQ levels. So no matter which way you cover the content, for example, if you're doing AQA, there's the trilogy science, there's synergy, there's this, that, and the other. But yeah, there's still be so much crossover that the core aspects of any science curriculum are going to be covered on there.
I know it's certainly the case for maths. The core content is very, very similar. Thank you, Peter.
And that's it for questions. So shall I take over, Sue? Is that all right?
Yes, absolutely. I will stop sharing my screen. Actually.
Okay. Well, could you keep that screen up, please? Could you just pop it back up? Sorry.
Yeah.
Because there was one other question, but I'm going to deal with that question with this screen. Great. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's come today. It's so lovely to have so many professionals all together at once sharing good practice. It's just so lovely to see. And thank you so much to Sue, Zoe and Peter for coming on the webinar and talking us through everything. It's been absolutely fab. Somebody asked about feedback and wanting to see feedback. Anybody who wants to look at question sets or feedback, you can trial LbQ for free by visiting www.lbq.org/try-LbQ, and you can choose from a 14-day trial or a 6-week trial, and you can have a look to your heart's content. You can run question sets, all those things. So if you are interested in really looking at the content, you can go by that. There'll also be a follow-up email to attendees as well. So I'll put some content into that for you. And yeah, if you enjoyed today's webinar, please join us. We've got another 4 webinars over the coming weeks, so please sign up on Eventbrite and join us for those. And I hope you've had a good time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.